without shovels, gloves, lots of stuff. They're pretty tied up together and they aren't budging. Okay, cool. So let's have a quick chat about this Commencal T.E.M.P.O. This is actually my son's bike. He's 16, so he rides the same frame size as I do, which is cool. That's kind of the justified way of getting a quiver of bikes in your garage. This sold for $3,400 when it first released. A lot of bikes are on sale right now. Bike industry is still kind of funky, and this one is on sale for $2,500 now. Now, what I wanted to go over was just some of the bike upgrades that I feel are the most important. A lot of times you can buy the base model bike, there's just the base build, and run it stock for a bit. But there's a few things that I really feel change the performance of the bike. Biggest one for me are brakes. I'm a big dude and I like stopping power. I like good brakes, good brake pads. This came with the TRP Trail Evo. They're a good 4-piston brake. The brake itself is actually really good, especially for a trail bike and kind of the terrain that we'll be riding on the T.E.M.P.O. Big thing for me were the pads on these. They just, initially they had some good bite, they had a good, decent feel to them, but it seems like I was having to clean the rotors and sand the pads all the time, and they would just lose their bite to the point where they were just super loud and no bite at all. So the biggest thing I did there was upgraded to the MTX red pads. Right here we've got the MTX red pads. This is one of the easiest upgrades you can do. You can take a decent brake set and throw some of these MTX pads in there, and it absolutely changes the whole brake, the whole feel. So these are going to have a lot more bite, a lot quieter, and just last a lot longer. They've got a great feel to them. The other thing that I haven't done a lot in the past was upgrading my wheel set, and I've absolutely changed my mind about this. I've ridden a couple different really good lightweight carbon wheel sets now, especially from Forge and Bond. I've got the Forge and Bond EM30 on my Meta V5, and then I've got a set of the Shift AM30 wheel set on this bike, on this T.E.M.P.O. So this Forge and Bond Shift wheel set is just awesome. I've got a review on the set of Forge and Bond EM30s that are on my Meta V5, and they've got the i9 Hydra hubs, whereas these are essentially the exact same wheel, but instead of that super expensive i9 hub, you've got an in-house hub from Forge and Bond, which are really good. Stock, this bike had a set of spank wheels with just a really generic formula hub set, which have like maybe 18 points of engagement. Yeah, they don't feel great. I've blown a few of those up in the past. This new Shift wheel set from Forge and Bond, you've got the exact same rim that gives you that same feel of their more expensive wheels. Same fusion fiber composite material, except for this hub is that in-house hub. They've got like 100, I'll have to go back to the website to look, but they've got over 100 points of engagement on these, and that sits between the i9 101s and the Hydra hubs, and these are just awesome. So if you don't need a million points of engagement like those Hydras, this is an amazing wheel set. It's almost half the price of the other wheels from Forge and Bond, and they feel great. I love how fast these Forge and Bond wheels accelerate. So fun. Woo! Thing that I haven't spent a lot of time upgrading in the past is drivetrain, and this I've done a drivetrain upgrade. Initially, this came with an SX derailleur and NX shifters with just like that SX cassette. I've upgraded this to the GX, full GX drivetrain. Got the GX derailleur, cassette, and shifter on there now. And I'll tell you what, it feels a lot better. The GX is probably the best bang for your buck. You save a ton of weight going with the GX cassette and drivetrain. It saves a lot of weight and it just shifts better. It shifts a lot crisper, a lot cleaner, and yeah, it'll last longer for sure. Just a great, you know, drivetrain at a good price. Let's talk about one thing that I hate about this bike, and I really do hate it. It's the internal cable routing. So whoever thought this was a good idea, and whoever started this trend, which I think this trend is kind of starting to reverse now, I don't think they were very smart. I think maybe they thought it would look cool, but didn't think one time about what that might mean to people that work on their own bikes and people that work on bikes in shops. But it's just ridiculous. If I wanted to change out my stem or maybe play with spacers, I'd have to take everything apart. I'd have to take apart my brake lines, you know, take everything off and essentially just take the whole thing apart here just to play around with a couple simple things. I would have thrown a P&W carbon bar on here, on their loam carbon bar, but at the time it only came in a 35 millimeter diameter here on this thickness here where you go into the stem. And you know, I would have had to change out the stem as well, which means I had to take everything apart to do that. So to me, it just wasn't worth it. Whereas now they've got the 31.8 in that loam carbon bar, and I'll probably throw one in here. If not, there's no way I'd want to mess with this and take everything apart just to throw that in. But anyway, hopefully that changes. Hopefully that trend goes away forever, because it's not cool. Other than that, this bike rips. This Hans dump tire likes to wash out a little bit. I'm gonna go back to a Maxxis DHF up front here. Get that dissector back in the rear. I like how these tires roll when you lean the bike over, but you turn a little too much and they just kind of wash out in this loose stuff. Yeah, climbing this feels a lot like that Ibis Ripley AF. Gives you a lot of traction when you're climbing through, you know, technical rocky stuff. All of the power goes into your pedaling. Super efficient. Great geometry as far as reach and C-tube angle goes. Puts you in a nice comfortable position just over the bottom bracket. And it doesn't feel too steep where I'm getting, you know, pressure and numbness in my hands at all. It still feels pretty calm there when you're riding through flat or kind of undulating terrain, but steep enough to keep the front wheel down and keep things comfortable when it's a lot steeper too. But after throwing some of these different upgrades on for climbing, the only ones that make a difference are the Forge and Bond Shift AM30 wheels. They're just a lot lighter. The bike accelerates a lot quicker, gets up the hill easier, has more energy than it did. This bike already had way more energy than I do, but now with these Forge and Bond Shift wheels, it's definitely better. The other thing I notice helping with climbing is that GX drivetrain that we swapped out versus the SX drivetrain that came with it. Had an SX derailleur, NX shifters, And that drivetrain's a lot heavier, but it also just doesn't shift as crisp. And I like this a lot better. It makes the bike just easier to get along with, get uphill. So this is a great choice if you're looking for something that climbs really well, stays glued to the ground on, you know, bumpy stuff, technical stuff, and you just want a good trail bike that climbs super good but super fun on the descents. Like, this thing is just amazing going downhill. This thing loves to climb through this technical stuff, but man, what a joy it is on the downhill. If you like to play around and jib on your bike, this thing is amazing. Super fast, quick acceleration. It's a rocket for sure, but this will pop and jump off every little thing that you come across. But man, besides being agile and playful, this thing's really plush off the top too, and its travel is a lot deeper than you would think. It feels really good and super plush. It's got a good feel as it ramps up toward the end of that travel. There's no real harsh bottom out on this thing at all.